Welcome back to my channel where I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. Welcome back to my channel where I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. Welcome back to my channel where I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. Now, this is a recovery episode that's really unique in the way that it offers two completely separate experiences, thoughts, opinions, and feelings on an issue that affects over 20 million people in the US and over 600,000 in the UK alone just from alcoholism, and that is addiction. Usually it's just been my experiences and my perspective on this, so this is one of the first times that, at least on my channel, we'll get to kind of see both sides of the same coin. And because almost every single one of my recovery episodes has either been demonetized altogether or demonetized and then put under review for days, which completely defeats the whole purpose of monetizing a video in the first place, I can finally say that my little channel and my little corner of the internet over yonder has been sponsored by Juvia's Place. That's kind of nuts to say because I've used their products for years, but anyway. Juvia's Place has most recently released the mini palette bundle, of which, of course, I have, which holds 13.2 grams of product, and they're split into 4 categories. Category 1, the chocolates. Category 2, the nudes. You better quit. We're talking about makeup. And the last 2, which are my personal favorite, the berries and the violets, which is clearly what is on my face as we speak. Now, they're sold individually for $14 a piece, but you can get them in a bundle for $52 on Juvia's Place website, which ships internationally, which we stan, and on Ulta, online, and in store. By the way, Juvia's Place is cruelty-free, which to me is the most important part because we stan not hurting animals in this house. I feel like that shouldn't have to be said, but here I am saying it. And now, onto the fucking collab. Okay, so we're gonna start with pretty much, I'm gonna recap my addiction story to kind of start off, you know, the whole family member in recovery, even though my story is really different. Anyway, okay, so long story short, after my mom died when I was 18, she was like literally the only thing that I really had in this world that was stable, that was always there for me, you know what I mean? So after she died, I completely fell apart. Honestly, like, if my son's dad hadn't entered the picture, I mean, I was planning on making an early exit. You know what I'm saying? Like, after she died, I met my son's dad probably not even a month afterwards. We pretty much, like, fell in love immediately, and it was extremely unhealthy after a certain point. You know, at first it was great, and then it quickly spiraled out of control. And more or less, we had started snorting what I thought was Roxycontin.
What's Roxycontin?
Roxycontin is pretty much like Oxycontin, and when you crush it up, it looks literally just like any other pill, except it's a little more tinged.
Right.
So an opiate, you know, Oxycontin is a prescription opiate that's very much abused, and Roxycontin is pretty much that.
Right, okay.
So, and you know, if somebody hands you something, you're not gonna automatically think like, I bet it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and either way, I did not give a fuck. Like, if it meant I wasn't feeling things, I'm like, yeah. So we started doing that very regularly. And then one day we were out of it and I started getting really fucking sick. And I was like, why do I feel like I'm dying? And also at the same time, I noticed that we were living with one of his friends and his girlfriend at the time. She was great. Loved her.
Okay.
So, yeah, we were all living in the same house, all addicts. Horrendous situation. And I had noticed them slipping up and calling it H here and there. So I'm like, Roxycontin doesn't start with an H. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, and of course his friends were lying to me. Keep up the story, God forbid. I mean, it's like, I could only overdose and die. So pretty much those two things combined, I was like, okay, I'm extremely sick when this isn't introduced. And I'm noticing them starting to call it something different. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just, something was off. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? So I literally, it might sound stupid, but I literally Googled heroin, and I saw exactly what we had been snorting for months every day, and I was like,
so heroin can be snorted?
Oh yeah, heroin can be snorted. There's black tar heroin, there's regular heroin. It's a whole, like China White. Anything you can do with any other drug, smoke, snort, all of it. Okay. So that's what we had started off with. And when I found out, I was literally like, wow, I could have died. Yeah. But I was in such a fucked headspace. I was like, well, that wouldn't be so bad. And a lot of people that were outside of the situation, like, thought that he was like a horrible monster for this, but
of course.
To be completely fair, once I found out, I didn't give a fuck. I was like, well, I'm already addicted, so here we are. And
do you think you would have tried it though if you didn't know?
No. My 3 things that like I did just about everything else, but I had 3 rules that I always kept to myself: no crack, no heroin, and no meth. So yeah, that was like, wow, that's super messed up. Yeah. In a nutshell, kept doing it. It progressed to IV use, and because my mom was like literally it, the rest of her family were kind of like, not my problem, not my kids. Boop. I was just kind of floundering. So his family was more or less the family that I was with. Everything was fantastic at first because, again, it started off pretty normal and then it just spiraled. After we were living with his friend and the beginning of it happened, we moved back to his parents' house because, when you're an addict, you can't pay the rent because you can't keep a job. And even if you did, money's gone. So we were living there, and basically, when you live in the same house as addicts, especially IV addicts, you notice. You notice that they're always gone randomly, or in the middle of the night, that their shit starts coming up missing, that their shit starts coming up missing, that all of a sudden you have no money for anything ever. Yeah. Like, even like, hey, you want to go to McDonald's with us? And we're like, no, we're not hungry. You know what I mean? Like, no, we're fine. We're good. It's fine. And like, we started getting in trouble with the law. Like, can't tell you how many times I've been in jail because of that. That was another thing before that, other than one incident when I was 15. Whole other story. Talk about that in some other video. I had never been in trouble with the law, so it was like a whole shit show for me. You know what I mean? Little by little, they started noticing, and then eventually, they started going through our shit because, to be fair, we were under their fucking roof. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And if it were me, because now I'm a parent, I would want to know. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if I suspect, bitch, I'm gonna go through your whole fucking every goddamn belonging, just 100%. Like the police, bitch. Is it right? Yes. I just got so into it, I lost my school. So
start taking out rooms.
Yeah, I'm like, God damn it. Yeah, long story short, they found out, and it was really different for me because he had his family, you know what I mean? And they hadn't, it was just a completely other story from me. I was like just this vagabond at this point at 18 with nobody and nothing. So he quite literally saved my life. And I think that's where a lot of me kind of having to get over that was like, I don't know, maybe that's mental gymnastics, but so when they found out, naturally, they were like, you gotta go to rehab. And of course, I was like, I'm not going to rehab. And he was pretty much the same way, so it kind of met in the middle at detox. Right. And of course, when you're a family that newly is introduced to the whole addict thing, especially with hard drugs, you're so new to it that you think, oh, okay, just a couple days in detox and they're fine, right? Like, you know what I mean? That'll probably take care of the problem. And of course, didn't. So
detox is just like you rattling through.
Yep, nope, yeah, just it'll be it's pretty much like 3 to 5 days. And especially when you're not going to because usually when I went to rehab the right way, it's not just like the 3 to 5 days, that's the beginning, because immediately after that you get transferred to rehab. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the rule over here, I don't know if that's the same way in the UK, and we'll get to that as well, how it's different. Yeah. You have to be in a detox facility for at least, I think, like 3 to 5 days first. You know what I mean? Just because you can be super fucking erratic, and you can have, medical issues that require you to go to the hospital. Yeah. Yeah, so we would do the detox thing, come back, they'd think that we were fine because we went to detox, problem solved. And, we played the game, of course, totally fine, and it fell apart every single time. It did not ever turn around until we were ready for it. It's different with situations when you're kind of forced into it, like court-wise, drug court. Like drug court's like literally the only chance you have left before they send you to prison.
Yeah.
Especially when it's all drug charges, because they do try and, you know what I mean, at least give you some stability, some stable footing, and not just throw you in the pen. Well, they also do just throw you in the penitentiary. But so yeah, until we were ready to do it. And it was also, he got arrested, which is a whole other story, for faking checks at the job he had. He was writing fake checks on behalf of his work.
Oh, that's fun.
And cashing them.
Ooh.
Not a good idea.
Ooh.
And the only way he got out of it was being immediately transferred to rehab. And I was literally left alone, so I did the detox in and out, in and out, in and out, until I found out that I was pregnant with DJ, and then I never looked back after that. And I went straight to rehab.
That's your history.
Woo!
Do you feel cleansed?
In a nutshell, yeah. In a nutshell. Yeah.
Well, with myself, obviously, I've never been in recovery. You know, I've dabbled in recreational drugs and stuff like that, like in the past, party drugs and all that kind of stuff. You know, the basic university route. But I've never been addicted. It's never been anything like that. No, I don't think I'm like an addictive personality.
Addictive personality, I was going to say,
I don't think so. So it's never been like that, but I have like a plethora of family members who've been in and out of jail and who have got drug dependency or alcohol dependency issues, etc. So I understand a little bit about recovery, but we kind of thought it would be really interesting if we talked about what it's like on the opposite side of the coin, because obviously I can never relate because I've never been through that. That's not my experience. It's not mine to speak on. However, I do know what it's like to be a family member of somebody who's going through recovery, and seeing it through a different perspective when you're legitimately watching somebody you love like slowly kill themselves.
Absolutely.
And you know what, like from somebody who's in recovery, like what to do, what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do, when to let go, when to use tough love, like all of these things that I wish other family members of mine who have kids who are in recovery would have known from somebody who was in this position. So hopefully, like, even if you don't get a definitive answer, you'll know, you know, methods to help, what's available and what's
something
out there.
that gets you started.
So we've got notes. So the first one that we have here is interventions.
Yeah. So okay, interventions. Ugh, that's such a different thing with everybody.
Yeah. So what would you qualify as an intervention?
Well, I think everyone's seen the show Intervention.
Yeah, we all sit in a circle, everyone's got a notepad.
That's a very good idea of kind of what it is. Except usually, you know, especially because interventions are kind of spur of the moment, it's just the family, not really anybody from the outside brought in.
Yeah.
Hi, hello, yes, it's me. So, while editing this, I watched this part and it hit me. Wow, I didn't answer the fucking question. So, interventions. Yes, it's different for everybody, but I guess maybe a little bit of an outline to follow or to give you some insight. Typically with interventions, yes, just like the show, you can sit in a circle or a square. I mean, there's no rules about that. Usually it's something that's done in a home, or sometimes it's a place that the person that's going to be in the intervention wouldn't be familiar with. So if it's a hard intervention and you know it's going to be hard, they'll be surprised and they won't already know beforehand and not show up, because that happens very frequently. They'll find out or get just a feeling that it's an intervention and they'll disappear. So either way, usually it's done with family. You can write out your feelings, you can write out how it's impacted you, or you can just speak directly to them. And I think everyone that's there should do that. But here's where you got to walk a bit of a tightrope, because you've got to make sure not to just completely guilt and shame the person that the intervention is about, because that helps no one. But be very honest and clear about how you feel. Also, there should be, obviously, depending if they're grown, then the consequences will be different. If they were younger, there should be consequences laid out, as in, if they're younger, you know, I won't pay for this, I'll take away this, etc. And if they're older, sadly, a common consequence is you either get clean and get your shit together, or for my mental health health and well-being, I'm gonna have to cut you out completely. The decision, of course, at the end of the day is completely up to them, and you can only do so much. And if they're just simply not ready, there is nothing on this planet that you could do or say that would convince them otherwise. I can promise you that. But that being said, it is always, always worth a try. Don't feel discouraged. Don't give up. And you can only do so much. Don't put that burden entirely on your shoulders. That's a monkey you'll never get off your back. Okay, so back to the video.
Do you think like if you're in the wrong headspace, it could be seen as like guilt tripping?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to talk about. I'll be honest, when that kind of somewhat of an intervention happened to me, I immediately felt betrayed. I felt attacked.
Yeah.
I hated every molecule in their body for it. And I wanted nothing other than to immediately leave the room and go get a lot of shit and like completely forget about what just happened.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, I said it's just such a different thing for everybody, and it can be a really sticky situation. It can get bad really fast. It can become a whole shit show.
So like when is
quickly.
the right time to like do an intervention? Like, is there a right time?
Exactly. Like, you know, it's when people are like, well, when's the right time to have kids? And again, you know, it does work with some people, because some people, especially if they're super close to their family, and there are plenty of people that, you know, are straight A students and work a job and you would never guess. So they have a lot on the line, and that, you know, could be a huge motivation.
Do you think, like from my personal experience, I always find that interventions are usually better done early?
Absolutely.
Rather than when they're like so deep into rock bottom that it's all consuming.
Absolutely.
So
when
like,
you can still try and talk some sense against the demons that are quickly building up, and that will completely silence your voice eventually.
So I think it's kind of like important to kind of, if you are looking at somebody that you love, that you want to, you know, have an intervention with, like, where are they right now?
Exactly.
Do you get what I mean? Is it really, really bad?
Yeah.
Or is it, you know, a kid who could just take a bit of reeling in? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have people tell them, listen, we love you.
Absolutely.
This is not the route for you, sweetie, you know?
And that's another thing, you know, with some people, it can just be such a shock that that's enough for them. But a large number of addicts, they just are immediately pissed and immediately wall it off.
Do you think that sometimes interventions could be the worst thing that you could do? Because then somebody can just close off and say,
and that's
fuck
it.
you guys, I'm off, and never be seen again.
And you never see them again. It is definitely a tightrope, and it's definitely a case-by-case basis. But 100%.
It's a method that's there and available.
Yes.
If you really, really want to try that, just know that
it might not work. And
everybody.
do not take it personally if it does not work. You know, you have to keep in mind that while somebody is a using addict, who they really are is buried so incredibly deep that there's almost no light characteristics left that are showing through.
Yeah.
Because when you are so heavy into it, at least with heroin, your entire life, you wake up in the morning, and if you don't have any left over from the night before, you're sick, and your first thing isn't take a shower, brush my teeth, brush my hair. The first thing is try and text like a dealer, see if he's good, and then say, okay, do we have anything we can pawn? Let's see. And that's your whole day until you get it, and then you have a couple hours of relief, but usually those couple hours of relief are when you actually feel well enough to make some money to go get some more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to run around and steal shit and pawn shit, and it's just insane, and that's your whole life. Don't take it personally if they just completely fly off the handle, because that person isn't the person that you know and who you think you're connecting to in that intervention most of the time.
Okay, so the next one is dealing with your mental health and like when to put yourself first. Because I know from being on the opposite side of watching somebody in the pits of it all, there was a time that I was like, I have to now remove myself, leave, because this is not emotionally good for me. Like, I can love you from afar, I can support you from afar, I can be there for you from afar, but if I'm too close, it is going to literally sap all of my energy. I'm going to be so drained, and I love you so much, and I just don't, like, I'm going to fucking cry. I love you so much, I just don't want that shit to happen, you know? Yeah, because at some point I had to say, like, I'm just going to have to wait for that phone call. Do you get what I mean? The one that says, they're not there ananymore.
That's right.
And, like, I was just going to have to wait for that phone call. That removal, because there's other family members of mine who could not understand how I could do that.
Yep.
It was like, how can you do that? You're such a cold bitch. It's like, I'm not a cold bitch. No. I just have to preserve myself. So for me, I knew the point when to like separate myself. But for you, looking on the opposite side, like, do you know when the right time is to say like that person should remove themselves from that other person?
Well, see, here's the thing. When you're on the addict side of it and something like that happens, especially when it's like your ride or die family member, you know what I mean? We all have one of those. Kind of like with the intervention thing, it can feel like the biggest betrayal you've ever felt in your life. And you're like, wow. So, and you know, that's just like the mental gymnastics that you do in your mind. You somehow make yourself the victim and like they're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Even though it's just so not true. And that's such a manipulative way to think. You know what I mean? But that's the addiction that comes through. So it's so different on the other side. I've also been on the other side now. After 6 years of recovery, you get on that other side and it's like a whole different thing. That's
quite interesting. You've been on both sides.
I know, isn't it? It's just so crazy. It's like full circle. That point is different for everyone. Some people, and it's so sad, like especially with mothers, you know, some moms never can do that. Never can disconnect, and it just swallows them whole. Honestly, that is so good for you that you were able to be strong enough to detach yourself.
It's probably because it wasn't my kid though.
But
so for me, it's probably a whole different kettle of fish, and maybe you know, I could, because it wasn't my child. Could I let go if it was Fion, however? I didn't even want to think about that because I don't think I could. I don't think I could. The resources available.
Okay, so for you it's totally different. So
I'm not super duper well versed, but I can tell you what's around.
Okay, so as far as like broad spectrum things, I'll put a lot of these in the description as well. Any detoxes, even though you know it's a short period of time, if you can get on a waiting list and you can get that foot in the door, even though this is just where it's like so under resource, it just pisses me off. Even though you'll be sent home after detox, which 9 times out of 10, if you get sent home, you're gonna fucking use again. And then once you finally get that call,
if you have a home to go to,
exactly, as well.
Do you get what I mean?
And when you finally do get that call, you're like,
back into the predicament.
Well, you know, I'm kind of high right now, so I don't want to answer the rehab call. Even getting your foot in the door and getting on that waiting list, that's important. You at least got to try.
The waiting list, from seeing like my family members go through it, the waiting list is ridiculously
disgustingly long.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who pass away on that list, but when my family member did finally get the rehab, like their lives completely changed. And I don't know if this is something that happens with the rehabs in the US, but they also offered my family member training to be able to become a drug care worker to help other people.
That's amazing.
And I thought that was like, imagine coming out of it and then like, oh crap, I can do something. I can go to college, I can get a job. Also, I don't know how it is for like you, but when they have to like check in with their drug care workers, do you have that? So when they have to check in with their drug care workers,
with the
it's
legal
always
system.
Like usually like some university graduates, never really been through it.
That's
I can
very
try
common.
and relate.
Especially with probation officers too.
Probation officers, always the same. And it's just like, you need that person who's, I've been to jail. I've had, like, who isn't like, I've been there, so I can do it, so can you. But, you know, I've been there, I've been to jail, I understand how the system works.
That genuinely understands.
I've been homeless, I've been sleeping in a garbage can. Do you get what I mean? Like, somebody who's actually been there, because I feel like people are more receptive to the people who've been there too. Because they'll understand. They'll be like, watching two people in recovery speak about their own personal rock bottoms is so fucking powerful, because that's a connection that you can't get with
almost anybody else.
And I find especially if there's two people who are, especially if it's like a couple, like you were in a relationship with somebody who was doing drugs and stuff, like when it's a couple, you share that, and it makes it so difficult in a positive way with a drug care worker that allows you to disassociate that bond with that person and see somebody else who's also going through that, doing great things, and think, you know what, it's achievable. That's something that we can do in the UK, but it's not offered to everybody. But it's definitely something that, you know, If you are a person who's like, okay, I want to go through recovery, I want to do this, you know, and wants an outlook, maybe have a look at those avenues, maybe speak to the people around and say, you know, after this, I want to help people just like you guys. And I'm sure they'd be like, more than welcome to help you find the resources to be able to make that happen.
Absolutely.
Because I know that definitely changed my family member's life, because even though he didn't take up the offer, he saw that there was more to life. People believed in him in a way that he'd never been believed in before.
Also, another resource, I don't know if you have that over there, but we have something called Narcan, which is pretty much, you know, when EMTs come to an overdose, Narcan is something that you can inject in them, and it will pull them out of the overdose, essentially. It'll throw them right into dope sickness. It'll save your life.
Yeah, they use it on ambulances all the time.
Yes, ambulances, EMTs, and it's something, at least in Illinois, I mean, you know, we're in Houston right now, so I couldn't tell you about these, like, specific resources. But in Illinois, if you go to certain, you know, clinics, and there's a place called Jolt, and they're all about harm reduction, they will hand out, you know, clean needles. They'll let you throw away your dirty ones. So you're at least doing it safely. They will hand you out Narcan. If you're a family member of an addict, you can come in and get it, you know, just to make yourself feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you at least have one real shot at pulling them out of that before it's too late. And that kind of safety is indescribable.
Yeah.
Both the addict and the family
some
member.
European countries
have
rolled
parlors.
Out. Clean needles, clean spoons, clean utensils.
And they have nurses there to monitor
I know
you.
that a lot of people
That's
find
very
that
controversial. I know. We're not giving an opinion. We're just saying it's a thing.
Even if it's, you know, let's not catch hepatitis.
Harm reduction.
100%. So I get that. But there are those resources, especially in Europe. I know there's a lot of them across Europe now.
Yeah. I think harm reduction is the biggest thing that can save lives. You cannot put someone's mind in a corner and withhold facts and resources and things like that. You just can't do that. Yeah. And it makes it even more dangerous for you, for them, and for everyone around them.
Yeah, 100%.
So
the next one we have is young versus adult.
Very different.
Okay, so like how to approach a situation if it's a young person, and when we're talking young, we're talking 13, when they're
still in school,
possibly the gateway drugs and all those kind of things, and you're a little bit worried, versus how to deal with things when it's an adult. I think we've kind of covered what it's like.
Yeah, it's so different. Yeah,
but like what to do when it's a young person. Have you come across in your own life like young people?
I personally haven't dealt like one-on-one with somebody that young, but
I mean, it's more and more common
now. Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, I don't know if it's the same way there, but it's different here because commonly it can end up in juvenile detention and things like that. So with adults, it's so different because with adults, it's jail and rehabs and stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, you know, there are rehabs that you can send younger people to, of course, but it can be just so entirely different because schools can get involved and the law can get involved. You know, if they miss a lot of school, there's truancy officers that can get involved.
You get penalized.
CPS. I mean, it's a whole different ball game with every person individually and with every age group individually. There are different ways to approach it, you know, different resources that can be given, that can be utilized.
I think it's just important to take a look at what's around you.
Yes.
If it's starting, if you're noticing, if you're seeing little things, if you're seeing do something about it, speak to somebody about it, get the resources together. Definitely don't go and put your head in the sand, because it can just be the difference between what happens now and what happens in a year's time. You know, because you can see hardened drug users at 17 years old and you're like, whoa.
Yes.
The next one we have is enabling versus tough love. Now this, I think, is like so important when it is like dealing with somebody. So I'm kind of like, I can help you to a degree.
Yeah.
I can give you money when you need to eat.
Yeah.
I'll bring it to you if that's what you need.
I'm so smart.
I'm not gonna sit there and make you go hungry. I love you.
Yeah, of course.
Do you get what I mean? But I'm gonna there's a difference between me spending, you know, £30 on some good ass pizza than £30 on what you can go and use somewhere else. You know what I mean? I think that's one way to be able to protect yourself, is because obviously nobody wants to see anybody go hungry. That's one way that I do, but I'm a tough love person all the way. Like, I'll be there for you. I will listen. I will be on the phone when you're crying. I will hold you while you're shaking. I will do whatever it is that you need me to do to be there for you. But I cannot emotionally invest myself in this because I have to.
That's smart.
I have to look after myself.
Not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah,
So
and some people say it's selfish, but
it's
survive.
self-preserving.
Okay, so what would you qualify as, like, you know, enabling behaviors that maybe people don't know about?
And again, especially with mothers, you know, there's going, you know, giving them money for anything is just not a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, just in general.
Yeah.
Some people, it'll go as far as, you know, they will take them to go get their shit. And that's just nuts. Like, never under any circumstances. There's a line between doing everything you can and enabling. Don't ever give them money. Don't ever make them think that it's something that's a normalized behavior. Don't feed into when an addict gets told no, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Just step away from the fucking situation altogether.
What about, like, okay, so a lot of people who have, like, family members who go through this, this is just something off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
But they'll have a situation where it gets to a point where, you know, law enforcement might need to be called.
Yep.
You're like, call them if needed.
Oh.
Because I think for, like, a mother or something, that would be so hard.
And, you know, there's a big thing as well, of course, with if you're under somebody else's roof and you have drugs and spoons and needles, especially if there are children in the house, they have no choice at a certain point, because if somebody were to walk in and see that, they'd get their kids taken immediately.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are not going to put me and my son at risk.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Absolutely not, under no circumstances. So that absolutely is necessary in many situations. I mean, what else are you supposed to do in that situation? Or just kick them out.
If they're
kick
just
them out.
getting aggressive or something like that. Because, you know, certain people, when they don't get what they want, it's like, let me fuck up your shit. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have to call law enforcement on and press charges on somebody you love.
Another way that you can be enabling that you might not think of is even giving them another roof to fall under, because everyone's rock bottom is different. But I feel like rock bottom is a whole lot different when you've burned all your bridges to the point where you have to sleep in your car, or you have to go to the mission, or you have to find a playground when it's not raining, like been there. Sometimes even that can be enabling, because then they have all the comforts and they don't have to really feel the full consequences of their actions. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it can't be that bad because I'm still in a nice ass house. You know, I got my own room, I got my bed, I got my phone. Like, it ain't that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different for everybody. So we have been talking forever.
I know, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Honestly, this is like so cleansing, and I've learned
and like
so
you
much.
and I can just always do that. Like, honestly, this probably could have been like an hour long.
Oh no.
Like, I just thought it would be interesting to kind of capture both perspectives. And if you have any questions about resources, or even questions about, you know, like our experiences or stories or whatever, feel free to like leave them in the comments. I'll leave all of our socials in the description. And I always say this, especially if you're an addict or family of an addict or anything like that, struggling with mental health, my DMs are always open. If I can get to it, I will give you whatever resources that I can find. So I hope that this was in some way enlightening, educational, helpful.
If you're a person who feels like you've been an enabler or whatever, just know that trying is trying, and there's no wrong way to love somebody. You know, but we can all learn, and I think that this has definitely been a learning experience for me. And also, one thing I also wanted to know, I know, like, sorry, you want to wrap this up?
No, of course not.
But another thing that I want to note is relapses happen. And it does not mean that the person is not on the road to recovery.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that they have fucked up forever. Doesn't mean they're irredeemable. The statistics of addicts having at least one relapse are astronomical.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean? So it can be part of it. But, so yeah. So I hope you're having a good day or night, wherever you're at. And don't forget, your vibe attracts your tribe. Bye. Bye.
When I see you overjoyed, I'm your Paris, you're my Helen, yeah, we safe in Troy.